unmute myself. I have to unmute myself. Wow, what a great start. Welcome to another session of Show and Tell Monthly. We're really excited about the projects we've got lined up today. We've got My Bike's Got LED, the Willow joystick, and the Spoonbot. But before we get started, just a reminder, we are quickly approaching Open Hardware Summit time, which will be in Edinburgh, Scotland this year on May 30th and 31st, as well as a couple satellite events on either side of that. So if you are in the area or perhaps have the means to travel this year, come join us. Come find out about all the cool, exciting innovations in open source hardware that are happening right now. There's some really neat stuff coming up. Like we've got a really great talk from Carson Holgate of All Yarns Are Beautiful. We've got some talks about the first open source Guatemalan satellite. We've got workshops around making bio yarn, making an open cyclone, which is an open source vacuum cleaner. Some really cool stuff. Would really love to see y'all there. It'll be an incredible time. But before that, we have some really incredible projects to hear about today. So we are going to be starting with the lovely Adrian McEwen from, of course, my cat has decided to start chewing on a box right as we're doing this. It's fine. Welcome, Adrian. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm disappointed I was going to start chewing on a box as well, and I thought, I'm online now. Maybe I shouldn't. It'll be a bad impression.
Maybe save it. Maybe that's like a personal time situation.
Maybe.
So you are the innovator behind the My Bike's Got LED driver board as part of your company.
Yep.
And so let's talk about it. How did this project come to fruition?
It's cool. I mean, I've got a couple of not slides, tabs I could just kind of run through if that's going to show people and maybe cover some of it, and then feel free to jump in at any time to chat about things. But I can work out how to present. Let me see, share my screen. Okay. Share the entire screen. Let's go with that. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I run MCQN Limited. We've been doing connected devices for like nearly 2 decades now, I think, which is a bit crazy. And kind of quite a few years ago, we did a big Christmas tree project here in Liverpool, where we're based. You probably don't need the sound on that, do you? So we put loads of LEDs onto a Christmas tree, and there were touch panels you could press at the bottom, which is all, kind of was excellent fun. And who doesn't love LEDs? And Christmas is a good time for kind of crazy lights. But all of that ran off like one 240 amp power supply, which was a bit crazy. And I mean, cool for that, but meant that we couldn't then kind of cherry pick the bits and go and do some other stuff with them. So like a kind of couple of years after that, kind of behind me, there's a bunch of the stuff from the Christmas tree hanging on the wall. Like I haven't turned it on because I figured it would be a bit distracting. But we kind of thought, what we could do is we could get old PC power supplies and use those to drive the NeoPixels if we had like a suitable controller board. And so that led to our first genuine like open source hardware certified product, which is My Baby's Got LED. And so that you plug in a PC power supply and then it'll run a load of LEDs for you, so you can do kind of cool stuff. We were running with this software called WLED, which is like some super nice open source software, runs on the ESP microcontrollers, and lets you do all sorts of cool things with LEDs and control them and all sorts of good stuff. So we had My Baby's Got LED, which let us do some stuff with the Christmas tree lights. And there's basically a whole bunch of us who every Friday night we go out for a group bike ride. So we just kind of like after work on a Friday, go out. We've got speakers and sound system with some tunes, and it's like a super chill kind of just group ride. Be like kind of anything from like 10 of us to sort of 50 of us. We'll just kind of cruise around Liverpool playing tunes and getting a bit of exercise, kind of catching up. And when it gets to the winter, we we wanted to carry on riding, but it's getting darker, and so we wanted some stuff to make it a bit more fun. And so, of course, with having My Baby's Got LED to do LEDs kind of inside, then it was like, okay, well, what if we did like LEDs on a bike? How would that work? And obviously, a lot of it's almost the same. It's an ESP controller, then running some NeoPixels, but of course, we wanted to run it off batteries. And so this is kind of what my mountain bike looks like with its My Bike's Got LED prototype on it. So it basically lets us run off a LiPo battery. I mean, it's probably not, you're not going to be able to see because I'm showing my screen, but like this is what the My Bike's Got LED board looked like the first time we made it. And it would have an ESP8266, which is kind of an older ESP module. We've got loads of them lying around because we bought a reel of them many years ago and we still haven't used them all up. And yeah, basically let us take a LiPo battery or lithium ion battery, whatever form. It's got a boost circuit to get you 5 volts to drive like a few amps of NeoPixels, and then you can get some NeoPixels, strap them to your bike, and then do all sorts of cool and crazy patterns. So we did a small run of those a few years back and sold some of them to some of the other people who come out cycling with us. So there's a whole bunch of bikes in Liverpool that every winter get to be more colourful. And then kind of following on from that, we'd done the first version. We figured there would be it would be good to do some changes. We didn't have a charging circuit on board the first time, and the charger things we got took forever to charge the batteries. And it's like the ESP32s are much nicer than the 8266s, so you can do like sound reactive because we've got a sound system. We wanted to do kind of cool, crazy sounds. And so that then led us to basically do a new version of it, which we kind of got ready in sort of February time, which is this much smaller board. I don't know how well you can see it because I can't remember how big my screen looks compared to the other stuff. I should probably stop presenting. But that let us basically do an updated version. It can do like 3 amps at 5 volts. So you can drive a few more LEDs than the old one could. And then that let us, basically loads more people get bikes lit up with doing different things. So this is from, actually, let me make it quiet while I tell you what it is, and then I can do crazy stealing sheep sounds. So last Friday, there's a band called Stealing Sheep here in Liverpool, and they were releasing a new album. And so they did a launch party and kind of joined forces with us who go out cycling. And so they're on the back of this trike. And then on the back of the trike, there are these 4 bars that I'll get to in a minute, running with the My Bike's Got LED board inside them, driving some NeoPixels, doing kind of cool and kind of nice patterns, nice colorful patterns. And then the other cyclists we'll see in a moment, lots of them have also got My Bike's Got LED on their bikes to kind of make them colorful. And we spent like Friday evening sort of cruising through Liverpool city centre, playing the new album from Stealing Sheep and kind of confusing passers-by, but everyone generally enjoying it and having a good time with some like really colourful bikes, and kind of taking over the city and launching the album for them. So
This is such a fun way to launch an album, to do a bike takeover.
yeah, like how do I? There we go. So yeah, that was the kind of the My Bike's Got LED. Let me work out to control my computer. There we go. Let's make this small. And then if I do that, and then I can stop sharing maybe and get back to just me. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we've been, and now I've got a bigger screen I can kind of show. That's the new My Bike's Got LED board. That was the first version. So this new one's quite a bit smaller, which is quite nice. Also means that hopefully it'll be a bit more useful for kind of wearables and things, because you need a battery as well, but it's not massive. So hopefully will kind of come off. And I guess final thing to talk about. So this is one of the things that was on the back of the bike, which then has like a nice, kind of combination of kind of plumbing fittings just to be nice and waterproof. And then there's a little switch and the USB connector, because one of the nice things we did was we've got 2 USB footprints. So for the normal bike option, everything will come in the side. But we got this project where we knew we were going to put some in some tubes. So we need shrunk it down even more to make sure it would fit into the tube, and then made it so that the USB can go onto the end instead of the side. So this has got the end USB version, and if I switch it on, should do, super bright pink and purple. So these initially, we put them on the back of the trike because we had them lying around, but we initially designed them, they would sit that way up and inside a kind of, a rubber base, so that they could then be as bollards. So that we did a project with STEAM engineers, who you'll be seeing later. They were running some kids workshops to do STEAM education stuff with kids and get them into more cycling. And we had a game outside, so the kids would get their bikes, and then they would have some parcels, which have got a little microbit on them, because the My Bike's Got LED board has an ESP32C3, which has Bluetooth as well as Wi-Fi, so you kind of can control it mostly over Wi-Fi, but it also does Bluetooth. So we could write some code for the My Bike's Got LED board, and it could detect whether the parcel was near to it. And then the person running the game would have a controller, and if I plug it in, it's gone to let me see if I pick the right one. So with one button, it would be in kind of waiting for the parcels to be delivered mode, where it would do one color, and then when the parcels have been delivered, they could check to see if they'd gone to the right place, and press the button. And if they had gone to the right place, then it would do the kind of rainbow pattern, which is just about visible, I suppose, on my camera. It's all a bit too bright, but yeah, that lets us do some fun games to get the kids to kind of do more cycling, enjoy the cycling more, hopefully. And yeah, that's the stuff we've been doing with these.
That's awesome. That's such a fun way to utilize them too. I feel like those kids must have had a great time playing this game. I know I would have loved it.
I think that's it. They get to, one, they were getting out of school anyway, so it was always going to be a fun day. But they were, doing bits of coding and crafting and things with STEAM engineers, and then there's a local bike co-op who have the trike, and that we've been working with. So they're setting up this bike library where kids can go and get a bike, and then just when they outgrow it, they just take it back to the bike library and get a bigger bike, so that the kind of local families don't have to be kind of continually buying new bikes for their kids. They can just go and utilize the library. So
that's an awesome collaboration to have. What a great collaborator. Bikes and LEDs are always going to be fun, especially to do it in such a way that it's so flexible, all the ways that you can play with the colors and the patterns. And I really love utilizing the tubing. That's a really fun way to do it.
Yeah, like the kind of it's frosted polycarbonate, which works really like actually when it's bright sunlight outdoors, there's a lot of light. And so we did find that we had to put more LEDs in because initially we were just going to run like 2 strips of LEDs. And then we did some testing and it was like, okay, this isn't really bright enough. Let's go back and revise that and add some more LEDs in. But I mean, who doesn't love more LEDs? So
yeah, I mean, LEDs are great. I mean, I think nearly every open source project has at least some LEDs involved.
yeah.
We're always putting LEDs on things. Do you see this going to another stage or a new development, or are you feeling pretty comfortable with where it's at right now?
I mean, I think it's pretty nice. We've got they're in we've got a Tindy store where we're selling them and doing kind of either just the board on its own, or board plus a saddlebag and some LEDs and a battery, so that you've got kind of all the things you need just to kind of fit it out to your bike. So that's what we were doing. Like last week, we had a fitting party here. So we're based in Does Liverpool, which is a makerspace here in Liverpool. So we had a like bike fitting party for a bunch of the people who were on the ride last Friday. Kind of came down last Thursday night, and then like got their bikes kind of kitted out and all kind of set up and ready to go. So yeah, we're selling kits like that. Like it feels like this second version has sort of taken it on, and it's quite nice, the kind of nice sort of stage for it to be at. I mean, we might end up turning the bollards into another open hardware product and like certifying, because that's all at the moment. It's all just in the MyBikesGo LED repo on GitHub. But yeah, it feels like it makes sense to kind of turn that into its own. Like,
definitely,
so there'll probably be another
kind of its own project at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there'll be another submission, and then we get to fill in is this based on any other open hardware projects bit of the submission form, which we haven't done before. So that'll be cool.
Yeah.
And maybe make it a little bit easier to add the sound reactive stuff. So the ESP32, like at the moment, we've got enough IOs that you can wire in a little microphone or a DAC to have it react to the sound, and that's all kind of built into WLED these days. And there's a fairly standard microphone module you can get for about £6 or so that you can wire into it, and we've been sort of thinking actually maybe if we made it so that it was really easy just to put some headers on and then just plug it in, that would maybe make it a little bit more user friendly for the audio active stuff. But aside from that, we're pretty kind of happy with this sort of stuff. I guess just spotted Jake's question. And yes, they can talk to each other and synchronize the lighting. Like that's all kind of built into WLED if they're all on the same Wi-Fi network. So that's all over Wi-Fi at the moment. I suppose those are some of the things that now we've got it. It would be nice to maybe play with some of the software to get it to do it over Bluetooth as well. But the WLED software can synchronize things and synchronize, so you can have one being the kind of microphone and picking up the sound stuff and then broadcasting to the rest of them. So we have had that working with one of the MyBikesGo LED boards with the microphone on, and then broadcasting over Wi-Fi to the controllers on the kind of tree things that are behind me on the wall, and having all of those react to the sound when the sound systems, like this is the event room we have in the makerspace. So we've got like a PA and stuff in here. So we have done that kind of synchronized lighting stuff, and there's a bunch of different ways that WLED can synchronize things. It's really flexible and nice, super nice project. Like it will do MQTT. So we've done stuff in the past where you can kind of hook it up to the internet to have it react to people getting mentioned on kind of social media and things like that, or whatever. Actually, there's a company I do some work for downstairs who make air quality sensors, and they have their logo on the wall with My Baby's Got LED board on it, running WLED. And like the logo changes color based on the air quality in Liverpool, because they're just sending data over to that over
That's so fun.
programmatically.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such a neat way to utilize it too. Out of curiosity, are you gonna bike down to the summit this year?
Well, I mean, it's up rather than down, I guess, because it's further north. But
Right.
but like we are coming to the summit, and we will be showing off some of the stuff, and probably bringing your bike. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you got to get around somehow, right?
Well, indeed. I mean, and Chris and I did cycle to Edinburgh last summer. So only from Carlisle, which is about kind of halfway there.
Yeah.
So that was there's a ride every midsummer called Ride to the Sun, which I think we're going to do again this year. And we'll have more lights on our bikes this year, which is good because it runs overnight. You start in Carlisle at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you cycle all the way to Edinburgh, with the idea being you get to the coast just kind of north of Edinburgh in time to see the sunrise, having cycled 100 miles overnight. So yeah, like it was a really nice ride. There's like a couple of thousand people do it.
Yeah, what a lovely experience. Wow.
Yeah. It didn't feel like quite so much with the 7-mile long hill in the middle of it, but
yikes.
But
they really just put those anywhere. They just all over. There's hills.
It's not really considerate, really, is it? I mean,
no, it's very rude. I mean, I am lazy enough that even biking back from 20 minutes downtown is up a hill, and I'm always like, ugh, up a hill.
Yeah.
But maybe if I get some LEDs on my bike, I'll feel more excited about biking up a hill.
Maybe that's it. You should.
It makes sense to me. Thank you so much for coming on and letting us know a little bit about your project. Really looking forward to getting to see it in action in person at the summit this year.
Yeah, should be good. Like the summit's awesome. Like I did it back in 2012, I think it was.
Yeah.
In New York was the last time I've been in person, and it's always a bit tricky to get across. So it was awesome to see it coming to the UK, and super looking forward to.
We're really excited to explore the UK a little bit and get to know some more makers in that area.
Yeah, well, if you want to swing by Liverpool at all during it, then we're always welcome. I was happy to show people around. And
awesome, good to know, because I think we're definitely going to have some free time.
Cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much again, Adrian, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Oh, I cut him off, but he was doing a little salute, and then we are going to bring on our next guest, who is Brad Wellington of the Neil Squire Society. Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. So you are part of the Neil Squire Society, who we have actually highlighted quite a few times in our write-ups because I love the work y'all do. So do you want to tell us a little about Neil Squire and what y'all get up to?
Yeah. So I'm with Makers Making Change, which is like a subgroup of Neil Squire Society. And we are a nonprofit based out of Burnaby, BC. Makers Making Change specifically focuses on making low-cost, open-source, accessible technology for people with disabilities. We have a library of like over 200 devices at this point, and we help connect people. Like, someone sees something they want in the library, they put a request in. Then someone else sees it in their community, we help connect them, and the maker will make it for them, get reimbursed for the shipping and materials, and then the requester gets that device just for cost. We also do a yearly Hacking for the Holidays campaign where we switch adapt toys to make accessible toys for children with disabilities, because it's crazy how expensive some of these like $600 some of these toys. So now we can just get like something from Walmart and switch adapt it. And we also have a network of game checkpoints across Canada where someone can come in and trial this equipment to get like an accessible gaming setup that works for them. that's kind of the big points that I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then your project specifically is the Willow joystick.
yeah,
This month, well, the most recent certification.
yes. I have some slides here.
Yeah.
If I can figure out how to get them
The
going.
greatest mystery of all technology is the present slides situation. That and printers, we're just never going to figure those out. It's impossible.
Okay. What screen am I going to be sharing here? Here we go. You see that?
Sure do.
All right. So the Willow joystick. So kind of before I get too into the details, just like an overview of the Willow. It's a low force joystick designed for people who need like a low force, low range of motion joystick. So for someone with something like spinal muscular atrophy, it takes about 25 grams of force to use. It's got a bunch of different swappable toppers. It's got up to 3 switch inputs on it. It has 3 LEDs. We were talking about every device having LEDs, and that's where we've got the LEDs. We've got a text display on there. We've got a buzzer. The user can adjust the speed, the dead zone, that kind of stuff. You can connect to anything that has a HID, pretty much, accepts that kind of input. So, your phone, your computer, your Xbox, and it can do sort of Bluetooth or USB. And the whole thing costs under 200 Canadian dollars at this point. Last time I checked the bill of materials.
Which, for anyone keeping track, our dollar's not doing great. So it's definitely cheaper where you are.
Probably. Kind of already ran through this stuff at the top here, but I had a slide for it. But I think I hit all these points. So the Willow kind of came out of 2 other things that we had going on. We had the LipSync, which is a sip and puff mouse. Been around in a couple of different forms for years and years. We had sort of the first 3D printable version of this. Came out in 2016. And we had a big hardware refresh on this early 2024, which is also certified. I got the number there for that. And we also have the OpenAT joysticks, which is a series of joysticks, use sort of commercially available joystick mechanisms. With the oak, the birch, the cedar, the ivy, now the willow. You can kind of see the tree name theme that we've got going on there. And these are sort of low-cost computer access devices. We're sort of computer, gaming, all that kind of stuff. But the problem with them is that they're all pretty high force, like 50, 100, 250 grams of force to use these. And we didn't really have any low force options. But we did that redesign of the LipSync. And as part of that, we sort of made a low force magnetic gimbal. And we sort of saw there, we had the opportunity to use that gimbal and create a low force joystick. So you can kind of see our initial sort of sketch of kind of what that would look like. We just took the direct model, put it there, and drew a joystick around it. But just to kind of get an idea what that would be. But we kind of ran into a problem where the LipSync gimbal was really tall. It was like 9-10 centimeters tall, I think. And that just, the joystick was just so high on the table if you were going to do that. And it had a lot of stuff in there that we didn't really need in the Willow. I had like a lure lock connector to put like a filter in there. It had a pressure line, it had a pressure sensor, and you don't really need that in the Willow if it's just a joystick. So we were able to sort of strip all this stuff out and completely redesign the CAD of the gimbal to shrink it almost in half. You can kind of see there the side-by-side of what the LipSync gimbal is and the Willow gimbal, and how much we shrank it. And then we kind of got a bit of a cutaway view of both of them there, where you can kind of see those components that we removed and how it was redesigned there. So kind of this is sort of what we ended up with, like the cutaway view. And there's sort of 2 main components if you don't count the toppers. So it's kind of how we center the joystick and how we measure the position of the joystick. We center the joystick with a pair of magnets. One of them is actually in the moving part of the gimbal itself, in the inner gimbal, and the other one is in the part of the gimbal that doesn't move, called the sled. It doesn't slide at all, but it used to slide in the lip sync, so, and the name just sort of stuck. And the two magnets are attracted to each other, and it'll center it. And we kind of got the distance right to get the force, kind of where we wanted it. And then we've got another magnet directly in the center of rotation of this gimbal. So as you move your joystick, the magnet just sort of rotates in place. It doesn't actually move in location. It just sort of moves rotation. And then we've got a magnetic sensor board attached to the sled. And then with that, we can read the position of the magnetic field and then determine the angle of the joystick from there. And it's almost entirely 3D printed. It's just like the sensor, the bolts, the bearings, and the magnets that aren't. Everything else here is 3D printed. We decided to reuse the lip sync hub for this project. We've got lip sync hub, Willow hub. The only thing that changed physically is that we changed the little name on there. And we just changed the software that's on it. We didn't really need to make a lot of changes. We basically just went through and removed all the pressure stuff, the sip and puff, all that sort of pressure-based sensing. And we kind of went with this because we didn't want to redesign the whole wheel. The hub worked really well. And it also gave us a lot of feedback that we could give the user as they're using this. We've got the 3 LEDs in there to let them know like the different durations of the presses they're doing on the switches. We've got the buzzer to give some audio feedback, and we've got that text-based display in there. That's super handy to have. It lets us basically give instructions. Like if you're doing a calibration, it lets you give you the instructions as you're doing it instead of you need to have like a little user guide and refer to that and go back to this and try to remember what beep or what color light means what. It just lets us give you like text-based feedback as you're going through it. And you can go through and lets you change settings too, and lets you see what the settings are. It's really handy to have. So we kind of made a bunch of these, and we wanted to get some feedback. So we sent them to clinicians kind of all across the country. We wanted to get some feedback on, how much force it takes to use, what the range of motion is like, the topper selection, and more. Kind of our key takeaway points that we got from this feedback was, the range of motion and the force are pretty good, but when you have it on a table, it's really prone to sliding around. And the way that we attached the topper was kind of an issue. I'll get back to that one here in a couple of slides, but we also kind of wanted to think about how to mount this thing, because, most of the time, just going to be on a table, but depending on how the person wants to use it, you may also want to mount it on like an arm to have it up in the air, different angles. So we kind of stuck with the existing standard used in all the other Open AT joysticks, which is to have the 2 M3 nuts 50 millimeters apart. This sort of let us use the existing adapters for 1/4-20 camera mount thread and Ram B ball adapter. These are kind of the common mounting arms that are used. And if there's something else, we can make a new adapter using the same standard, and it'll work with all the other joysticks. And we also created a non-slip base for the Willow that uses that sort of same standard. It just kind of matches the exact shape of the base. You put 4 non-slip feet on it, and you can bolt it on and take it off if you don't want it. If you want to mount it on an arm, you don't need it. And this non-slip base kind of completely solved the issue of it sliding around. It stays in place great now. But we've got a bunch of toppers that you can swap out on this too. We have 7 different toppers that you can choose from based on kind of the other existing topper styles we had. We've got a stick topper, a concave, convex, a small, medium, and a large goalpost topper. I've just got the picture of the large one, but I think the small, medium, and the large are all in that little GIF there. And we have a moldable topper, which isn't in any other Open AT joystick, but it's found in I think Xbox has something similar that you can 3D print and clip onto their thumbsticks. So the idea is that you can get these heat moldable plastic pellets and heat them up in hot water, and they get like really soft. and then you can kind of push them onto this, and like the little plus shape with the holes kind of give space for the pellets to squeeze into, and then you shape it to kind of whatever the user wants, and then it cools back down and it's solid again. And this lets like a clinician or another user kind of create a custom topper for this thing that matches exactly what the user needs without needing to have those CAD skills and like have a 3D printer and all that to make this custom topper. But if you do have CAD skills and a 3D printer, we've included design files so you can make your own custom topper. We have like the Fusion files and the step files. And it's just basically the base kind of stick part of the topper with the 2 gutter lock tabs and like an orientation mark if you're doing something like a goalpost topper that needs to be in like a certain orientation to work. But kind of a big problem we had with these toppers at the beginning was initially they were held in place with a bolt. So we had like an M2.5 nut in the inner gimbal. You put the topper in place, bolt it down with an M2.5 nut, and it held it in place great, but it kind of had some issues with, it was a little uncomfortable. You needed a screwdriver to swap it out, and not just like any screwdriver. You needed one of those like precision screwdrivers. You don't always have one of those on hand. And also the hole on that topper would sort of fill with, crumbs and dead skin and dust, and it's not really easy to clean. So general consensus was we had to change it. So we swapped to a gutter lock topper for like a really secure topper that's easy to clean. You can swap it without tools. Super easy. You take the joystick, you take the topper, put it in, spin it 90 degrees till it clicks, and then it's just not going to go anywhere on you. It's right in there. And sort of the last thing I had about it on my slide deck was the shape. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I really wanted to avoid just having it be like a box, just like a 3D printed box. Just more of it'd be like an oval sort of teardrop shape. I had to learn a bit about surface modeling to kind of get like the outer shell looking all nice. But I had to learn like stuff like over modeling and trimming and all that stuff. But I think it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. And something that kind of came out of this that I was pretty happy with is the ability to make that sort of cutaway shell. Like way back at the beginning, I was talking about the lip sync, and the 2016 version of the lip sync had a sort of a half shell that you could have on it. And it would show the microcontroller and the Bluetooth module and the internals. But the 2024 lip sync, you can't really do that. Just the way that stuff works for rotating and all that, you can't really have a half shell on that. So you can't really see the internals. But with this one, you can put the half shell in and it works just fine. And you're not going to send it to a user like this, but for having it in the office or like a booth or display, it's great to just have that visible. It's just a great visual aid. People find it pretty cool. I find it pretty cool. And so I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it looks great. And like, what a great project. As a person with disabilities, accessibility devices are always really important to me. And I love seeing all the work that y'all do through Makers Making Change and Neil Squire. Like, I love how many versions of joysticks and accessibility ways of interacting with technology that y'all have come up with. And this is just like another great addition to that fleet of designs. I'm so stoked to see it. So for this device, were you responding to someone's specific needs, or this was something that you knew made sense as a next step for joystick design, or what kind of brought you to this?
This is sort of in response to like clinician feedback. We had like our OpenAT joysticks, and we kind of got a bunch of feedback saying like, these joysticks are great, but like, do you have a low force option? So it's kind of a general feedback, just looking for lower force options than what we had in the library.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you see any other developments coming with this one, or is this one feeling pretty set?
Well, we've got a bit of a software update coming. We're doing a big software update on the lip sync in probably soon. I think that's all I can promise on that one. And then we want to duplicate that update and bring it to the Willow as well, because it adds a bunch of stuff like safe mode if like something isn't connected right to build, and a bunch of other really cool stuff. We want to have that. And then there's some stuff that I'd like to have available, but I can't promise will ever be in it. So take it with a grain of salt. We were talking about the idea of having it so you could use the same hub for the Willow or the lip sync because they're so similar and they use like the same connection. So just like you plug a joystick into it and it sort of figures out what it was. And another thing I kind of want to try is having the microcontroller directly in here. So you don't even need that hub. Kind of a bit of a faraway goal, but the idea is you lose all that feedback that the hub gives you, but you'd save the money on, because the hub is like $110 and this is like $50.
Yeah.
So if you could take that and make a $50 LoveWorks joystick, I think that'd be kind of neat. You wouldn't be able to, it would make it a lot harder to adjust settings and stuff. You'd have to go through the API instead of having that nice menu with so well designed, and you can click through and just change things and get that immediate feedback. But it's an idea, I thought.
Yeah.
One of these days, maybe.
Yeah, I can see how that could be really helpful. Yeah, always finding ways to reduce costs is such a nice way to make these kinds of things. Especially, yeah, we see a lot of times in non-open source projects and closed source, it's usually like we're going to add something, but it's going to be more expensive. So thinking in the opposite direction is really interesting. And then we do have a question in from Terry. They're saying, I like this joystick design, and I wondered what hardware you use to measure electric field movement.
We measured the magnetic movement, like the movement of the magnetic field with, it's an Adafruit breakout board. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it is in the GitHub. But let's see if I can just remember what it was real quick. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff.
Would it be the triple axis magnetometer?
Sounds right.
So the Adafruit, it is in the GitHub and attribution. There's the Adafruit TLV493D
Yes,
triple axis magnetometer.
Yeah, that's the one.
Which is wonderful.
I think it's like $10.
Not bad.
I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it works great. It's fairly sensitive, and we did some testing on this, and we get like a really linear response for that. So in both force and the actual reading that we get.
Awesome.
Which
And
is
then
nice.
we also have a follow-up. We got also, why the chamber on this design, as it could be more compact, or was it intentional for wrist rest?
We actually have a separate, I realized I forgot to put that in the slides. We do have a separate wrist ramp to kind of raise your wrist up when using it. There's not a huge amount of empty space in there, honestly. So the chamfer, that was just, I'm assuming this chamfer here. That was mostly just for looks and to kind of reduce empty space in there, because there's the actual gimbal mechanism itself is kind of in here. And then we've got the jack, which is sort of in here. And there's sort of nothing in there. So I just sort of tapered it down. Just kind of visually tie in this kind of the square area of the jack to the larger area up here.
Does look like it would work well with the wrist ramp as well, to have that little bit of...
Although the wrist ramp actually goes other side. Sorry.
It really wants to be this beautiful view.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that it's green screen.
The green screen
Green's
is
probably not the
greening
greatest color.
effectively.
Yeah. And it also, it gives it a bit of, because when you put the actual mechanism in, you kind of pry the two halves of this apart a little bit, and it kind of gives it some flex to get the gimbal in here, and then it snaps back down and holds the gimbal in place. you can run this completely without the shell at all. Just the base bit is enough to lock it in place. The shell just kind of exists to keep stuff from getting in there and all that.
Yeah. Classic, keeping our innards safe. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us a little rundown on this device, and really looking forward to seeing what else comes out of NeilSquire, as always.
Thank you.
Just really great work y'all do. I hope that folks are going to keep up with what you get up to, because it's a great program. There's a lot of really cool devices that come out of it, and lots of ways to really rethink how, even if you are able-bodied, it can really change how you perceive interacting with a device and what you actually get out of certain device setups. For example, a couple of years back when we had the summit in New York last, we had Bradley Garthrop talk about repetitive stress injuries, and how literally the way our computers are designed right now tend to increase the amount of repetitive stress injuries you're going to get. So things like this, these devices are not just for folks who are looking for that style of accessibility, but for able-bodied people too. If you are considering whether or not your keyboard or your mouse is doing what it needs to be doing, these are really great alternatives.
Actually, ever since I designed this little wrist rest for the Willow, I've actually been using it myself with my mouse here on my computer, just to kind of give my wrist a break.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing to have. It's important to think about. A lot of us are makers who are spending a lot of time on our computers doing this, and we don't think about what happens when our hands start to go and we can't do any of our fun playing around and making weird things anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Brad, and we will
thank you for having me.
Talk to you soon. And we are down to our last two guests of the day. We've got Snoof, we've got Chris, and they are joining us from, that is the wrong thing. They are joining us from Steam Engineers, and they are talking to us today about the Spoonbot.
Hi everyone.
How are
I'm
you doing
Snoof. We're doing all right. We're actually in the same room as Adrian. So we're still looking at beautiful rainbow lights. It's all very relaxing.
Yeah, it keeps you in the right mindset for something like this, right? You're like, LEDs, yeah. All I want to do is talk about cool open source projects.
Excellent. Well, we have got LEDs for you. I'll show you the board, and then we've got some slides. So this is Spoonbot. There he is. And then he's got a little potentiometer on the side, so you can change and show kind of your energy levels throughout the day as they, well, generally aren't going up really, right? Are they just going down? Or if you're in an annoying meeting, you can do it really kind of demonstratively, like, no more, goodbye.
Meeting's over.
That's it, exactly that. I'm just going to share my screen. Yes. There we go. Up. Sorted. Right, so this is us. We're Steam Engineers, and we are a community interest company, which is to say that we're like a non-profit, and our goal is to make coding, art, and kind of digital making accessible for as many people as we possibly can. So Chris has got a physics degree and he has a PGCE, which I just realized now means absolutely nothing outside this country. It means that he's a qualified teacher for secondary school, and currently he works doing PCB design for Adrian, and also he runs 3D printing workshops on behalf of the people who make Ultimaker 3D printers. And then I work as an artist, and I tutor a specific child in the area who is really, really cool. And I also run neurodiversity workshops on behalf of a charity for neurodivergent people. I am also neurodivergent, and I'm multiply chronically ill, so I use a wheelchair. So I'm very much like going to look up what's going on with these specific devices that are being made. So the history of us as a company is that we used to run a little community makerspace in the city in a library, and we had a kids tech club, and we had like time for the locals to come, and we had like a knit and natter where people would come. And they were all very, we're not doing computers. And then they got into computers because it turned out computers had knitting patterns. And then we got like a 91-year-old to laser cut some wooden buttons. So she'd made a cardigan, and then she'd made the buttons as well. But we didn't survive COVID because we didn't get the financial support that we needed. And we couldn't obviously get funding because we couldn't run any workshops or tech clubs. So now we're kind of running workshops in local libraries for the most part, and we are also developing we're always working on hopefully developing some kits for people to make their own stuff. And we started off doing some of that, and then Spoonbot happened as well. So we've always seen a lot of neurodivergent kids, because when you're doing coding, you're going to see a lot of neurodivergent kids, which obviously brilliant. But then obviously you're also working and very aware of the fact that those kids are going to run out of energy. That also obviously we're going to run out of energy because we're human beings, right? And for me specifically, very much that kind of spoon kind of theory came into that. So multicolor solder mask PCBs became available from JLC, and Chris told me about that. And immediately we were like, oh, we've got to put a robot on this. So we've got BlinkyBot to help teach surface mount soldering. So what actually happens with BlinkyBot is a photo, but the eyes go off as the kind of antenna comes on and vice versa. And it's just to teach people kind of the beginning of like circuits and what's going on with all this solder paste and this reflow oven, and why can't I make croissants in it? And why won't Chris let me make croissants in it? Why must you do this to me? And then we thought we could make it a bot that indicates kind of a spoons level, and that can help people communicate things that are difficult to communicate, maybe help them communicate that, especially when kind of talking about it might actually take more of those kind of energy levels down. So then we did try that. So he's a friendly little robot. He's got a WCH CH32 series 10-cent microcontroller with some code on it. And he's got a battery indicator that you can operate really easily using that potentiometer that I was showing you before. So in terms of the artwork, I wanted it to be fairly clean because I knew it was going to be fairly small. So I made the line work in Inkscape, saved it as an XCF, which you can then open in GIMP. If it was more complicated, I would then go to Krita from GIMP, but I thought I can do this fairly easily. Then I got the board layout from Chris so he could make sure that the LEDs were going to match up to where the kind of colors were. So I wanted the amber LED to be in the amber, obviously. And then JLC prints it onto the PCBs directly. Because of how small they are at the moment, we get them in like sheets of 8, separated by mouse bites. So you've got to kind of pull them all apart and do some filing, and then, but I kind of like that. That kind of makes it more fun for me. And then Chris, this is your side, I think, more.
I thought I was going to stay with Adrian over there and sneak over there, so I could just sit and smile in the background and not have to speak. But here we go. I've got a slide. So yeah, the only things I really wanted to say was, one thing was the thumb wheel. The potentiometers have been quite difficult to source, but we were really sold on that because kids liked that tactile input. Everything's buttons now. Microcontrollers have killed the analog inputs. So we had to really battle to get the thumb wheel. So they're in there. Using the 10-cent controller was, again, just something I wanted to play with. So we've got that on there. There's budget constraints. We wanted the cheap one, but it did introduce us to this Moon River IDE, which I don't know was certainly new to us, but seems to do the job. I think now it's very possible to do the WCH chips in Arduino. So that's something I think we'll look at further along. And it meant, should I say this publicly? I normally do all my development in KiCad, and so we moved. The only way I can see at the moment, and I'm very happy to be educated if this is wrong, is the EasyEDA environment to design the boards is the way we had to go. So that's in there, unfortunately. If someone knows a better way, please tell me. I'd love to know. Is this still me?
Okay, go on. You've done enough, sorry. Chris was very like, you do lots of the talking, I'll do lots of the talking. So we ordered a set of the boards just to kind of check that the circuit worked, that the code worked. So then we use a reflow oven and we kind of do the manual soldering for the potentiometers. I think if we adjusted the reflow profile, that would be all right. Putting those potentiometers in, but I don't know enough about how to do it. I just turn up and just put little things in place and I go, yay, look at this. I have some tweezers. And now we've got some pre-assembled boards, so we just need to put the pin backs on, which is obviously a little less time consuming. I'm pressing the button on the wrong screen. There we go. So what's next? So we've got the pin back boards on Tindy with a link to all the documents so people can make their own, obviously. And also, as I'm sure you know, on Tindy, you can put in the number for your OSHWA certification. So we've put that in as well. And we're keeping the price as low as we can, obviously, so that people can actually get them, because we're very worried about people. Like, we used to get a lot of kids in. We used to charge, I think, £10 sorry, £5 for 2 hours of workshop. When we changed that to £10 for 2 hours, a bunch of kids like couldn't come because they couldn't afford that change. So we're very aware that a lot of the people that actually need stuff like this, a lot of disabled people tend to be in poverty, right? And so we want to make sure that they're actually accessible to as many people as possible. And we're working on a rechargeable version that would have a case and then go on a lanyard. Again, for accessibility reasons, so we've spoken to a bunch of teachers from SEND schools who have said that the worry basically for them is it's currently powered by a coin cell battery. It's obviously got that pin back as well. So you want to make sure that it's something that can be safely used with younger kids as well, and with people that might not be able to kind of stop themselves from getting hurt for whatever reason. There you go. Any questions?
Okay, well, this is more of a comment than a question. But this is such a wonderful little idea. Like, I love, I feel like we've seen a lot of versions of a energy bar or spoon bar kind of situation. And this one is so fun. The kids are right. It's fun to have a tactile button. We're losing out on tactile things so much these days. So bringing something tactile into it is so perfect. So was this just inspired by your own, like, just enjoying that you could produce it this way? Was just like, we could do this, so let's just do it?
A little bit. So I put robots on everything. So Chris is just kind of like, hey, I think you could put a robot on this. This is fine, which is good for me. And then I kind of had this idea because I've also seen the kind of, the ones that you move it and it's like a badge or something, but I was always very aware that physically it looked like it would move on its own at times that I didn't want it to. And I thought, well, actually, but if we did it with a board, would we be able to do it so that it doesn't actually change? And then Chris kind of just ran with it and made it actually work, which is like, thank goodness for Chris. To be honest, I wouldn't have known where to start on my own. But I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't give you any compliments. I'm so sorry. I've broken the covenant. Yes, he couldn't stop me. I'm just out of arm's reach. It's excellent. But also because obviously, like, we work with a lot of neurodivergent people. I am a neurodivergent person, and it's like we're very aware at all times that, like, you can't always say I'm actually running out. And then on the other side, I think as well, you don't always give yourself the leeway to even notice that you're running out of spoons, right? You don't get taught how to do that. So I also kind of think if you have that available, then maybe you'll be more motivated to go, actually, I'll take a second out and think about this. Like, how am I actually doing energy-wise? Am I actually up for the next thing? I am very famous for saying yes and then going no at the time, like, oh, why did I do that? So like, maybe it'll help people kind of investigate ourselves a little bit more as well and go, actually, this is not something that I can do right now. Or if I book that on that day, then I'm going to crash for 3 days afterwards or whatever. And make other people more conscious as well that people don't have infinite energy for whatever you want them to do.
I really also love the next steps you have planned. A lanyard method is so smart, as well as rechargeable. I think last year it came out that Australia was changing a lot of the rules around coin cell batteries. So something like this really helps increase the likeliness that it can be used for longer and in more places. So that's such a smart way to approach it. Yeah.
I think it's also like the difference, say that you're running like, I don't know, you've got X number of kids running around, they've got one, and then either you have to change like, I don't know, 25 batteries every day, or, you just plug them in. And I think Chris is working on the rechargeable version. I think he's got a little LED separately that'll say like, oh, I need charging, or, I am charging, or I'm done charging. So hopefully that will kind of cut down on the workload for that as well, because we're just sitting here, like, we've got a bunch of them, obviously, but we don't have to manage them all the time. You just manage whatever you've got. Whereas obviously if the people that we've spoken to are going, oh, we want to use this in a classroom, they've got to manage like loads of them. And then, maybe batteries are not only not the most workable, but also, of course, not the most environmentally friendly way to go about it.
Yeah, that's always a huge thing. I was actually just trying to help my mom find an alarm clock that plugs into the wall. She's like, I don't want to just use a bunch of batteries. And I had to like go out of my way to find a non-battery operated alarm clock these days.
Yeah. I had that for Christmas lights. Why are they all on batteries now? I don't want batteries.
Yeah,
I can forget to turn off batteries, and then I have one set of lights, and then I'm never going to put them back in.
Yeah. And then we do also have a comment from Terry who says they work in education and can see this being really helpful for some of those who just can't express themselves, which is the exact point. It could really do a lot for so many people. And wow, why are you so involved?
I smell like two cats. I think that they can just smell it through the
Yeah,
internet.
you
is
can
my guess.
sense it through the internet. Thank you so much for coming on and letting us know about this project. It's really cool. We'll definitely be keeping up with some of the work that Steam Engineers is getting up to these days. And
Thank
yeah, with that, we are at the end.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.
And just like that, we have made it to the end of another show and tell. We've learned about 3 new incredible projects, and there's going to be more to come every month, every third Thursday of the month. Sometimes the time will vary, but it'll happen the third Thursday of the month. And we will always get to hear about 3 really cool new open source projects that have been recently certified. So be sure to tune in again next month and keep track of these makers and their projects. They're going to be doing some really cool stuff. See y'all next month.